All right, well, welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you for the IMA Student Series Finance and Accounting Professional Panel. And we have a great lineup of panelists and we're looking forward to hearing from them shortly. And I just have to say this is an incredible turnout. There were over 900 that registered for this event. And I know there's more coming in right now, but we're almost to 350. So we're glad that you can make it. A few things before we start. The session is being recorded. I know that's a question a few of you were asking. This will be sent out to those in attendance and even those that just RSVP'd. So that'll be sent out after the webinar. And then one other thing, you should have been muted once you entered the room, but if you could just make sure that you are on mute, that way we don't have any distractions, that'd be great. So I'll first start with introductions. So my name is Tyler Skelton. I'm an academic outreach manager at IMA. I'm based out of the Seattle area, and I work with colleges and universities in the Western US to help promote the CMA certification and other faculty and student resources that we have to offer. Joining me today is my colleague, Mary Patterson. Mary is also an academic outreach manager. She's based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So she works with colleges and universities in the Eastern US. And today, Mary will be our moderator for today's session. And also we have some of our other team members on here that'll be answering the chat questions, so we may reference them a couple times too. But let's take a look at today's agenda. I'm going to give a brief overview of IMA and the CMA certification. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that because we really do want to get to the panel discussion, but I think it's important to provide this information. This might be the first time that some of you are even hearing of IMA or the CMA certification. So it'd be good to just give a little bit of a background. And then throughout the webinar, our team will be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions for us or the panel, put them in the chat box. I also make sure that you're sending this to everyone. If you send it individually to us, we might not see the questions because we are getting so many. So if you could just put it in the chat box to everyone, that way we don't miss anything. We'll try not to miss anything, but we will have some time at the end for some questions from our audience. So what is IMA? IMA, or the Institute of Management Accountants, is a global association with more than 125,000 members who are accounting and finance professionals working in business. Our organization has more than 300 professional and student chapters located in cities and campuses around the world. So this creates a really great networking opportunity. And I can't stress that enough, the importance of networking and doing that while you're still in school. And joining an association like IMA is going to help connect you with professionals that are working in industry. And then that way you can start building your professional network. And then for some of you on the call, graduation is right around the corner. So now's a great time to start doing that. And then you'll see on the map that someone drew on. Let me remove that really quickly. You'll see on the map here, we have offices all around the world. We're headquartered in Montvale, New Jersey, but we have 10 global offices. And then IMA also offers the CMA certification, which is the global standard in management accounting. And then on top of that, we have so many other career enhancing resources that are available to our members. So let's first take a look at management accounting and public accounting. And we use these two as an example because oftentimes when we're speaking to students who are true accounting majors, they hear a lot more about public accounting and they might not hear as much about management accounting. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about the differences between management accounting and public accounting. And also, if you're a finance major, don't tune this out just because you hear the word accounting. Most of the panelists that we have a finance background, whether that's in school or their career. And you'll also see how finance shows up on the CMA exam as well. So this picture helps show the different roles and responsibilities of the internal management accountant versus the external public accountant. So the rectangle on the left represents a company or organization where a management accountant is employed. So on a daily basis, they could have responsibilities for developing and implementing processes and procedures, for example. They could be managing different parts of the finance function within a company. They could also get involved in both internal and external reporting. So these are important for value creation and strategy for an organization. And then, as most of you might be a little more familiar with the public accountant or external accountant, they will provide advice to their clients on details related to audit and tax. They are not going to be involved in the daily operations or decisions that support the implementation of a company strategy. Their main focus of their job is to ensure that the organization is complying with the appropriate regulations and requirements. So to sum up this slide, essentially the management accountant helps the company make money while the public accountant helps the company to stay in compliance. Now, whatever route you go, these are both great career paths. You want to make sure that you're getting the relevant certification. And if you can get both, I know it's easier said than done, but the CMA and CPA are very complementary to one another, and it'll help set you apart from others. And Mitra is on the line with us today, and she's actually going to share an article in the chat. It's called Dual Certification, and it's a 9-step plan of how you can earn both the CMA and CPA. And then also a few of our panelists have both their CMA and CPA, so we'll hear a little bit about that coming up here shortly. But the CPA license is granted by a US state. So each state has their own education and work experience requirements. Most of them are pretty similar, but they do vary. And then the CMA is a global certification. So someone sitting for the exam in China, Dubai, India, Netherlands are all taking the same exam. So that should give you a little bit better understanding of the two and the relevant certifications for those both. And this slide here shows us where management accountants work, some of the titles they may hold, and the type of work they do. I'll quickly go through this. So you'll see these light green boxes. These are some of the titles that internal accountants might hold in the workplace.
You put it instead of like orange juice, it's all mimosa. And then you do a caramel.
Can everyone please mute? Take us out. There we go. And then you'll see some of these blue boxes here. These are some of the job responsibilities. For example, budgeting and forecasting is a very common job responsibility as a management accountant. And then as we begin to fill this in, where are they working? Basically everywhere, all sorts of companies and organizations. And this slide here shows that you're in a very marketable, in-demand major. It's derived from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it tells us that over 75% of accounting and finance professionals in the US are working inside companies and organizations. So about the other 25% or so are working in professional services, such as your public accountants, who are supporting their clients with audit and tax advice. So this is important to understand because if you start your career in public accounting, it's very likely that within 3 to 5 years, you'll move into a position in industry. And that's where IMA and the CMA certification can help you make that transition. And if you started your career in industry, great. There are a lot of great opportunities available to you. And I'm going to give a very high-level overview of the CMA exam. I don't want to get into the details here, but the CMA exam is composed of 2 parts, testing your fluency in both accounting and finance. The exams are each 4 hours long, starting with 100 multiple choice questions and concluding with 2 essay scenarios, which are essentially like mini cases. The exams can be taken in any order. So you'll see part 1 is financial planning, performance, and analytics. This has 6 sections. And this is going to be more of your accounting focus. So think of your cost and managerial classes, intermediate. You'll also see technology and analytics included in that section. And then part 2 is strategic financial management. This also has 6 sections. And here's where you're going to see more of your finance topics that will be covered. And also, very important, professional ethics is included here too. So hopefully some of these topics look familiar to you. And I did want to note that what's great about the CMA exam is you can take it while you're still in school, and I encourage you to do that because a lot of what you're learning in the classroom is content that's going to be tested on the CMA exam. And this content is very relevant. I bet if you were to ask our panelists today, I'm sure they'll tell you that these skills are necessary, that you need to have a mastery of to do well in your career, and the employers are going to be looking for those types of skill sets. So a couple more things before we turn it over to the panel. If you take one slide away from my portion of this, it's this slide right here. It's our CMA scholarship program. So IMA offers 10 scholarships per year at every 4-year college or university. And what's great about the scholarship is it covers all the costs related to the CMA program. So you can sit for the exam for free. So this is available to all accounting and finance students. In order to receive the scholarship, you must be nominated by a faculty member. And that's really the only stipulation that there is with this program. So included with the scholarship, students will receive 3 years of IMA membership. They'll also get entrance into the CMA program. Those fees will be covered along with the registration fees. You'll also get retired exam questions and a glossary of terms. And new this year, the CMA scholarship recipients will get their choice of review provider materials from either Gleim or Wiley for a 12-month period. So this is easily more than $2,000 in value. All you do is need to get nominated by a professor. So the key takeaway here is just make sure that your professors know about this so they can nominate you. And then this is another exciting opportunity. I know Mary and I were pushing for this because we have had a lot of professors wanting to incorporate this into their classroom. We're excited to let everyone know that 2 of these courses are being offered for free to IMA student members, which is our Data Analytics and Visualization Fundamental Certificate course. It's a long one to say. And then the Robotics Process Automation RPA series. Both of those are free to our student members. And if there are any faculty members on there, they are free to the IMA academic members as well. And if you want more details on these courses, you can go to the website you see on the screen, which is imanet.org/CPE. And what's nice about these courses is once you complete them, you'll earn a professional certificate from IMA, and then you'll also receive a digital badge that you can post on LinkedIn. And I also included on here a student membership for just $25. There's a code Campus22. So you're getting several $100s worth of courses here. We have some other upcoming events that'll be free to our student members. So the benefits of a membership are really valuable for just $25. So with that being said, let's move on to the panel. I'll introduce everyone here. And first of all, I just want to thank all the panelists for being with us today and taking time out of their busy schedules. And we're very appreciative of that. And I know this is going to be a great discussion. So I'll first introduce Dylan Azevedo. Dylan is a senior financial analyst at the Walt Disney Company. Next is Millie Ikundi. Millie is a finance specialist at McKinsey & Company. We also have Lauren Johnson. Lauren is a finance director, Janssen R&D at Johnson & Johnson. And finally, we have Michael Kelley. Michael is an operations manager at Nike. So now I'll turn it over to Mary to begin the discussion. So give me 1 second to stop sharing my screen here.
Yeah, no problem. And as you do that, I think you're going to get a lot out of this presentation. I was watching the questions that were coming in. Something did come up. We're recording this and we are going to send it out to everyone that's in attendance so you can go back and learn from what we discussed. And then please keep the questions coming as our panelists are talking. You're going to see they're very diverse, both in their background and also the companies in which they work. So I think you're going to get a lot of good out of this. So let's get started with this. The first question, and it's to everyone, would you briefly describe your career path to date, provide some details about your current company and your responsibilities within that role? And I'm going to start with Lauren Johnson from Johnson & Johnson to go with that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for having me today. So, you know, as I reflect upon my career, I could definitely talk for way more than my allotted 3 minutes, but I've been with the company for 15 years. And I started out, you know, just like all of you as a university student, not sure where I was going to go. I was a finance major at Lehigh University, which is in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And I knew I wanted to go into business, but the financial services industry wasn't really like calling for me. I knew I wanted to do something different. So I got exposed to Johnson & Johnson via an internship opportunity from one of my corporate finance professors, and I was really intrigued. I went there and I ended up loving it, and I joined into the Financial Leadership Development Program. Many of you might be familiar with these leadership development programs that big corporations offer. In the first 2 years I was there, I got to see 3 different businesses, which was amazing. I started in corporate IT. I moved over to a small pharmaceutical unit that we had just acquired, so brand new startup. And then I wrapped up my first 2 years in a worldwide financial planning type of role. So like very standard FP&A type of work. After those 2 years, what I realized was I really loved the farm business, and that was where some of my passions were. So upon graduation, I went back to the pharmaceutical business and I started partnering with a variety of sales and marketing teams to drive growth and drive value. And Johnson & Johnson is a very diversified company. And my area was really focused on growing market share in the US, right, for our pharmaceutical business for a variety of different products. I did that for several years, got promoted to manager, really enjoyed it. But Johnson & Johnson really promotes a culture of rotation, right? And so they said, hey, why don't you go try something new? And I was like, I love what I'm doing. Why would I do anything different, right? But it's that growth and stretch mindset and mentality. So I switched over to the medical device sector. And I actually had 3 very different roles there. First, I started out doing commercial sales and marketing, working again with those teams to drive US market share, come up with great strategies. How can we drive our business even further? And then totally changed direction, ended up with this opportunity in supply chain finance. very accounting heavy. I was a finance major. I don't know if you caught that piece. And thankfully I had done my CMA, so I wasn't totally in the dark at this point, and my MBA was helpful as well. And I ended up spending the next 4 years in supply chain, first doing inventory cost accounting and some really, really technical tax things, really working with you know, all sorts of intercompany pricing strategies and things like that. And then I actually switched over and moved into a brand new organization that I actually helped build, working on divestiture strategy. So looking at non-core businesses that J&J had acquired over time that maybe were no longer relevant, and actually working to spin those out. So, I mean, really in those short 6 years, did 3 completely different things, which all brought me to where I am now, which is working back in farm. You know, I never stay away for too long, and I am working in pharmaceutical research and development, where I am responsible for value creating opportunities, finding value creating opportunities in the farm sector, and really helping to drive value for patients and look for where the science is and what can we do to bring value to our customers and our company. And so every role I've had, you've heard I've done many, all very different. Everything has been around that value creation strategy that Tyler just talked about. You know, how do you create value for the customer, the patient? And being part of that business has really driven my passion over the past 15 years. So helping those patients and helping to drive value for the company has really been the focus of every role I've had, even though they all may look and sound a little bit different.
Well, thank you, Lauren. I also think it's great that, you know, you are a finance major, because I know Tyler and I get that question a lot. You know, is the CMA right for me if I'm a finance major versus accounting? So that's pretty neat to hear that. So the next, I'll move it to Dylan, the same question. And I think you're at a company everyone has heard of, Disney, but they might not be familiar with how someone in accounting and finance fits into that company. So briefly describe your career path to date and provide some details about your role within the company.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for having me. And I think I started off doing multiple internships, like in high school and college, my first year of college, just kind of bouncing around different industries, telecommunications industry, semiconductor. And I got all those experiences, but my career in the entertainment industry started off my sophomore year of college. And it's by far my favorite industry that I worked in. And I got an internship while going to school. Stayed there for around 2.5 years. And once I graduated, I was working in the parks at the time in Anaheim. And once I graduated school, I went, and just like Lauren, I did the accounting and finance rotational program. It's a leadership development program at Disney. And it's geared toward accounting folks who want their CPA, but it's also, I went to school for accounting, but during my 3rd year, I switched to finance as well. So I got an accounting and finance degrees. But the rotation program is geared towards accounting, but they welcomed me. They welcome a lot of people who have finance backgrounds, because within the rotational program, the first 3 rotations are mainly like accounting heavy. And I went through revenue accounting, I went through SOX and compliance, segment reporting. And then my 4th rotation was more finance focused. And that was by far my favorite rotation. It was with ABC Studios, and I did FP&A, like financial planning and analysis for them. So I got to look at all their talent deals and kind of nitpick and say, how much are we spending on this writer, on this producer, and can we go out and get more? Can we go out and get more talent to boost our portfolio? Right now, I graduated the program a couple months ago, and Disney, we went through a major reorg. We bought Fox a couple of years ago. We launched Disney Plus, and we have a major stake in Hulu and ESPN Plus. So just a brief overview of the company. We have 2 major segments now, and it's DMED and DPEP. And DMED, it's everything, all the media assets roll up under DMED, and DPEP is all the parks. And so I'm currently in the media side of things in FP&A role, and my team, we focus on the 5-year plan, AOP, budgeting for all the different business units. And it's been an amazing journey. I love what I'm doing right now, because I get a bird's eye view of all the media assets under Disney. And I'm working with people from FX networks, from ABC, from Hulu, Disney Plus. So it's amazing. And that is where I'm at today.
Great. And same question for Millie. Describe your career path to date. Some information about your company. Your company might not be as well known as Disney and Nike, but we love to hear what you have to offer.
Yeah. So actually, I started obviously with a business background. I did my undergraduate in banking and finance. And then right after bachelor's, I actually went on to do my master's in finance in the UK. So after graduation, I kind of like started off with accounting and finance operations, worked within like AP and AR, back office operation support. And I supported a couple of like educational institutions, nonprofit marketing firms. Then at the point I was moving from the UK to the US, and in my mind, I was like, I think I want to go more into public accounting. I was actually looking forward to getting into external financial reporting or taxes. So when I came here, trying to like get ready to do the CPA in Virginia, an opportunity came in within FP&A, and that was with Accenture. So I was like, wow, FP&A looks really different, not really like the traditional accounting and finance. So I decided to try it. And at this time, started doing that work. I was still prepping for the CPA because I thought I was still going to eventually get to public accounting. And I realized that FP&A was really different, like the strategic support, the analysis, the planning, the budgeting, and every other thing. It was like every day you have a new piece of work you're working on. So I was like, okay, what do I need to do to get the right skills to be able to excel within FP&A? So I was researching and I found the CMA. So I was still doing the CPA at the time, but what I did was I just did the CPA and the CMA at the same time, got certified at the same time. And I really just kind of like understood that I had more interest in the internal work than the external work. So since then, I've been doing FP&A, worked with Accenture, had some background as well within financial services, worked within technology. Right now, I work with a company called McKinsey & Co. So McKinsey is actually a global management consulting firm. So they do a lot of like in grad school, you see a lot of research from McKinsey, and they provide like innovative solutions to clients across variety of industries, banking, insurance, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, public sector. And I've been there for about 5 to 6 months now. So I'm like brand new, but it's been very interesting. So the aim is for me to kind of like do a couple of rotations across different finance pillars. But right now in my current role, I actually work within client financial management within the US. So that's like working with partners who work with clients. So the client may be anywhere within banking or insurance, but working with these partners to make sure that we are providing efficient financial management support for their projects. So it's right from the like beginning of the project to the end of the project. It's anything from confirming the engagements, budgeting for the engagement, staffing for the engagement, pricing, like how do we price these engagements? What do we offer as rates to the clients? Throughout the month as well, we also do a lot of like reporting, analytics, just for the clients or the partners to know where they are, the financial position of the engagement, and also kind of like what they may need to do to change stuff around to make the project more profitable. And then at the end of the month or so, we do a lot of like recommendations. Maybe we need to like provide advice on like finance best practices. What do they need to do to make sure that, again, they are in compliance with all accounting policies and rules and stuff like that. So I've been doing that for 5 months now. That's my first role within the firm. It's been very exciting. I just like love the fact that within the role, you're able to be like a strategic business partner. You work with like senior executives. You bring in your ideas. You learn a lot from other people, and it's been very amazing.
Great. And I also like, especially for our international students, that you have some education internationally as well. So that's pretty neat. And then, not to leave our last finalist off, Michael Kelley from Nike, if you could describe your career path and your responsibilities within Nike.
Yep, sure. My career path is pretty standard. I started out, I did a graduate program in accounting, a master's in accounting and information systems at Florida Atlantic University. I was pretty much geared up to do the audit track at one of the big four public accounting firms. Shortly thereafter, did about 2 years of audit. Really wasn't for me, not really how I thought about. I had already taken and passed the CMA exam. At this time, I really liked cost accounting and cost management, and actually ended up taking the CMA shortly after I graduated and after I finished the CPA exam. Then after about 2 years at Deloitte, I ended up going into an advisory group. So advisory practices are kind of a little bit more about helping a client with a certain problem or specific use case rather than an engagement like an attestation or a tax engagement. And so I ended up going into an advisory group called Finance, Operations, and Reporting Technology. And what we really helped operations and finance teams do was create capabilities and data analytics around specific operational processes or finance processes that essentially lacked visibility or transparency, especially when it came to cost management. Then after doing some advisory work with Nike for a specific cost management application, I ended up getting a job there. They really liked me. It was pretty mutual. So I ended up going over from Nike, got poached by a client, ended up going over from Deloitte, going over to a client, got poached by Nike. And now, and I spent a year as a product manager in financial planning and analytics. And essentially my role as a product manager was to help with the complete product lifecycle or systems development lifecycle, if you remember that from some of your IS classes. Specific to financial planning applications, we use a pretty standard software in industry called TM1, and it helps do budgeting and forecasting and all that fun stuff. Then shortly there, about a year after, I switched over to operations, where I'm at now. I sit in essentially distributions and logistics operations, and I help build cost management functions. And I also help a lot with performance management, which seems to be kind of an internal weakness that we have when it comes to supply chain specific capabilities. So my role is a little bit varied. I still feel like I'm a consultant or an advisor. I'm not really responsible for tons of month-end reporting or any sort of financial reporting. More so, again, my whole career has been around capability development and enabling certain teams to do something that maybe they weren't good at before or weren't able to do without the right technology or resources.
Great. All right, we're going to move on to the second question. What are the benefits of having a professional certification, and how did you decide on the CMA, and what has it done for your career? So I'll start with Millie with this one.
Benefits. I think there are very many benefits to this. First of all, kind of like identifying what are your weaknesses and strengths and your interests, so that you make sure that you identify where you want to be, and in turn, do the right certification that's going to tie with the path you're trying to choose. One thing that I also kind of mentioned is the fact that you kind of like learn and develop all these skills through these professional certifications. So there's a lot of learning and skill development in there, which is great for us as individuals. And through the skills that we learn on these certifications, we are able to solve day-to-day complex problems at work. So that makes us more efficient. And in the end, that improves productivity for the team. I would also like to point out the fact that, yes, it also helps with a lot of like credibility, especially if you're trying to work with a new client or a new company. They kind of like see that you have done certain kind of work. And through that, they are able to know if they want to work with you or kind of like feel comfortable engaging with you on a project. So that credibility also adds to that piece. And I feel like through these certifications as well, if you're part of these organizations, you kind of like network with other people. So you get to meet like different people with different backgrounds. Networking is really good. You may think that you want to follow one path, but you will find someone who's doing something else that really seems to be more interesting than what you're doing. So I feel like it has very, benefits to that. Another thing I also like to mention is, I think salary potential and opportunities for work, because when you have these added credentials, you're able to negotiate higher salaries, you're able to actually get opportunities or exposure to many other career paths that may come up. Sometimes even you get a job where you don't really have to apply for the job, you get hunted for the job. So it just improves your marketability as an individual as well.
Great. And Lauren, same question to you.
I definitely want to build on what Millie said in terms of, the different benefits. So now, now as a people manager, as a finance director, I've got, a team of managers, and they have staff underneath of them, right? And I think in this competitive climate, as you look to develop yourself, it's a great way to differentiate yourself from your peers. Not only does it show the skills that you've obtained, but it also signals to leadership that you're willing to put in more than baseline, right? So you've done something over and above what maybe your peers have done, right? Not everybody is certified, certainly. And so that sets you apart, because that signals to leadership, this individual's really got something, right? They're excited and they want to go after something. They're going to continue to better themselves. And chances are, if you're doing that in one aspect of your professional life, you're probably doing it in many aspects of your professional life. Right? All of you are giving up your free time now, even to sit here and listen to all of us. So I think differentiating yourself is huge. The other thing I think that I just wanted to mention really quickly is learning takes on a really new dimension after you start working, right? In the classroom, you absorb things a certain way. When you get the opportunity to apply that learning in real life, it's such a benefit to yourself as a person to develop in a different way, and you internalize it differently. So it's a benefit to your career, it's a benefit as a differentiator, and I think it's a benefit to your ongoing life learning that makes our professional careers interesting, right? So that's what I would say.
Great. Thank you. All right, the next question is going to be for Dylan. You received the CMA scholarship, which Tyler told everyone on the call about, while you were still in school, and you were awarded the CMA designation. Can you tell us a little bit about the scholarship process, how you prepared for the CMA exam? And then is there any advice you would give to the students that are either about to start studying or are currently studying?
Yeah, so I could start off with the process. I didn't even know what the CMA was my first and second year of college. And when I took my management accounting class, the professor brought it up and said, hey, there's a CMA designation. If you really like this course, please apply. And I leveraged that to the fullest. And I asked my professor, hey, can you nominate me for this? And he nominated me. I got the scholarship. And I definitely, for all of you, since you guys are still in college, try to pass both parts of the exam before you graduate, because after you graduate, all your responsibilities shift. And just like Lauren was saying, when you're in college, you're learning. You just want to you want to learn as much as possible. But when you get into the working world, you have so many more responsibilities thrown at you, and life just gets really busy. So definitely pass both before college ends, and definitely reflect why you want to take it, because it is a big time commitment, just like college, just like getting a job. Everything takes time. And when I was reflecting, I knew I wanted to be in the finance world. I didn't know where that was going to take me, but where I'm at today is because I took the CMA exam. Because in my rotational program, a lot of the people ended up taking the CPA, and once they graduated the program, they're more geared. They've taken a lot of roles in the controllership team, and they are working as senior financial accounting analysts. But I knew I wanted to be more on the finance side of things, strategy side of things, and that's what elevated me to get this role that I'm in now. So definitely pass the exam. That's the best thing you can do.
Great. And for those of you that did hear, and Tyler said this too, you can start the CMA exam while you're still in school. So that is one of the biggest benefits of the CMA. All right, we're going to go on to the next question, and this is going to be for Mike and also Dylan, but we'll start with Mike. Can you give us an example of specific CMA concepts and skills you have used on the job?
Sure. Yeah, the biggest one that has been relevant for me has been cost management, just as foundational knowledge, but also directly applied to my job. And really, I think Lauren explained it really well in terms of a new dimension to learning, of taking it from essentially theoretical knowledge or from your textbook to applied learning. One thing I'm responsible for essentially is, and I'm trying to think of the most eloquent way to explain it, but essentially it's their cost allocations within supply chain. And so a lot of times you'll have carrier specific logistical data, or maybe even operating data that comes off of warehouse management systems. And it won't have the granularity that we might need to make decisions. So the question becomes, how do we then assign costs to a relevant dimension of our data set? So for example, let's say we want to know the cost of a particular sales order as it passes through the supply chain. We can then use the cost management principles and some of the cost accounting methodologies that are present in the CMA exam to allocate and derive what we think the cost should be for a particular activity, for a particular job, for a particular process. And those concepts have really come in handy for me in terms of the direct benefit and being on the CMA exam. The second would be performance management, and definitely a lot of the budgetary aspects of that. Find not only financial planning, but also just understanding more so what is performance management, what we mean. It was a shift in my thinking as when I went from performance management into terms of supply chain. There for performance management, we're typically talking about volume through your network or your distribution network, which is was an interesting concept for me at first. Second to that, an up and coming trend that we're seeing across all major retailers goes back to that cost per unit, really understanding businesses are all really trying to get tight, especially with a lot of current supply chain issues. What is the actual cost per unit and how does it vary per particular aspect of a supply chain if you are in a sort of distribution setting, which a lot of retailers are depending on how integrated they are. So those two areas, cost management and performance management, have really been the two stars of content that I use daily when it comes to the CMA exam.
Great. And then Dylan, same thing. Any CMA concepts and skills that you use on the job?
Yeah, just like Michael said, it's a lot of the cost management concepts. And then in addition to that, it's a lot of decision analysis and risk management. In my role right now, we just started our new fiscal year. So during the AOP process, we went through this huge exercise where we actually asked all the business units to submit their SG&A costs, which is the selling and general and administrative costs. And what we did is we took all those costs and analyzed it, put them to the revenue. So for example, what ABC, they submitted their costs, and we looked at the revenue that they're generating to see, is the return on investment good? Are we allocating enough resources to ABC in order for them to grow their business, and to the revenues that they generated in this past year, is it good for the amount of expenses that they have? And I think I'm excited for all of you because there's that technology aspect now in the CMA exam. And I know a lot of my work is done in Excel and PowerPoint, and it doesn't take a lot of knowledge to understand like typing stuff into Excel. But the more that I've worked, the more groups that I've been to, the more focused they are on getting away from Excel and getting away from PowerPoint and just getting onto one system like SAP or Cognos. I think Michael said TM1. TM1 and Cognos are pretty much the same. And just pulling all the information from one data source and then building executive-friendly dashboards through Tableau instead of building everything in Excel. So the earlier on you can start developing those skills, the better off you're going to be in the future.
Great. We're going to go to the next question. I've been watching the chat a little bit, so I think this is going to hit home for a lot of people, maybe answer their questions. But according to IMA, about 20% of their CMA members are also CPAs, and they can be very complementary designations. This is for Mike and Millie. Since you both have the CMA and CPA designations, can you expand on which credential is more beneficial for certain jobs and how they kind of work together? So I'll start with Mike with that.
Sure. Yeah. When I started my career, I didn't really understand how essentially potent being dual certified would be. And so that was really a big benefit as I looked for opportunities outside of it. I like the slide that Tyler had presented earlier that really showed kind of the difference in competencies between internal and external. And external CPA, you can think of a lot of those capabilities, like going to financial markets and financial reporting, but there are some other, specifications or specialized knowledge areas that are really interesting as well. For me, I found that the CMA exam was complemented by the CPA exam, especially when it came to like business and economics concepts. I felt specifically like the BEC section of the CPA exam really looked and felt very similar to the CMA Part 1 exam, which had that kind of cost management, performance management, technology, and internal controls aspects of it, which I feel like we're all covered in BEC. So they were really complementary, not only professionally, but also in my studies as well. So kind of a tip off, if you're thinking about doing both, you might be able to sequence it in that way. I think the second way professionally that they were really, able to be combined is when I was more of an advisory and consulting position. You would have to prepare essentially a business case on why you were a fit for some pretty high profile clients. And within that, I found that a lot of what we bid on in my advisory practice, which again was finance, operations, and reporting technology, were these transformation initiatives that were not only going to change an internal process or how internal decision-making behavior, but also was going to flow through to some sort of financial statement line item like revenue, or maybe it was going to drive cost of goods sold down, whatever the case may be. So I felt that having both certifications really gave me some specific competitive advantages to set myself apart from my peers, but also as well as to stand out on my projects. I really got to see how things went from internal reporting and decision making all the way to how it goes to Wall Street. So I felt like they just were really strong pairing together. And again, it took me several years to realize how potent being dual certified was in my career, and I'm still seeing a lot of the advantages of it today.
Great. And Millie, that question for you.
Yep. So I think I strongly just support what Mike mentioned about the BEC section of the CPA and some components in the CMA exam. And I also want to go back to the slide that Tyler shared about internal and external. So I feel like first thing, like you don't need to have both, but it's really great to have both. If you think that you are someone who likes to be in an environment that's like full of variety sometimes, and you like working with policies and like day-to-day accounting stuff, then maybe the CPA is the right thing for you to do. If you think that you're someone who likes to be internal within the company, strategy, planning, how can you add value within your organization, then the CMA is the best option for you to do as well. For me, I think similar to Mike, when I started, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. So I was like going to the CPA, and I saw that, oh yes, I think I like the CMA. And both of them have been very complementary, because even though I've been working within FP&A for the past 7 years, I have seen myself sometimes in like different tasks within the team that kind of like tied to external reporting or financial statements. For example, I've been on a role where I have to kind of like provide audit support, like when auditors come in from like different firms who want to like look over the financial statements. I'm like the point of contact on my team, helping with the audit support process. So being able to have the CPA has kind of like helped me not only look at things with an internal lens, but also being able to look at things externally as well. Just having to see, okay, I'm working within this organization. What do people on the outside like to pay attention to when it comes to our financial performance? So it's been very valuable for me. I also remember like working on a project where I had to take lead on risk assessments on all our client engagements. So for example, like bad debts, it wasn't like it was a very manual process. It wasn't automatic. So I have to kind of like assess all the risk on our engagements and make sure that I'm like talking to project managers, talking to managing directors, really making the right judgments, calculating these numbers, and booking the right numbers in the system, because these same numbers are the numbers that translate to our financial statements and numbers that are going to be very, very critical when auditors and other people are looking at financial statements. So that's something that I think having that CPA knowledge really helped me as well, because I'm able to not only just look at things internally, like I said, but able to also have that external lens to how I need to judge and make decisions for the company and for the business.
Great. And Lauren, I guess I will also ask you, you have your MBA and a CMA, and I know we deal with a lot of students that want to make the choice of what to do, or they might be an MBA student without an accounting or finance background. How have you thought that those work together?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think they're very like, you know, CPA, CMA, right? It's all complementary, right? It's all like part of the journey. I mean, I would definitely recommend doing both. Like, I don't think, you know, in the case of an MBA versus a CMA, like one is definitely not a substitute for another. Like what I got out of my CMA experience early on was really critical as I was growing personally in the organization and gaining more responsibility and learning new skill sets and learning new roles. As I progressed further, I think the opportunities that are afforded to you in an MBA are, you know, broader in terms of the network. You know, like you can, you know, you're working, well, pre-COVID, right? You know, I was in New York City with people every day, side by side in a classroom, meeting, you know, 30, 40 people every class. And that really, for me, grew my network really fundamentally. And so that element I think is irreplaceable. And some of those people are, you know, my best friends today. So I think that they're both, I think they're complementary as well. And very appropriate at maybe at different times in your career. Maybe you stagger them, right? Maybe you do that CMA earlier on, and as you get a couple of years under your belt, go back, get your MBA or however you want to stagger it. But I think they're complementary as well.
Great. Well, that wraps up our prepared questions for our panelists. And I know I've been seeing questions coming in. Mitra, I don't know if you want to start with some questions for our panelists that have come in.
Yeah, there have been a couple questions regarding what classes to take to prepare for the CMA exam. Is it better to take it after one of these specific classes? Can anyone touch on that?
So what classes or that you would recommend for someone that knows that they want to get into the CMA?
Yeah, I could take this. Definitely management accounting is the first class you should be taking. And definitely then I think that's the most important one for the accounting side of things. But for the finance side of things, take a budgeting and forecasting class and take advanced accounting too that works with mergers and acquisitions, because that might be one thing that you work on when you're in finance or a strategy role.
Great. And I know I saw a question come in from a student wondering, you know, when is the best time to take the CMA? And it really does depend on your education and where you're at with the knowledge that you have. But I think for most students, it would be senior year. Is that when you did it, Dylan, or was it junior year?
I took mine senior year. So I kind of straddled. I took one test during my senior year, and I took one after I graduated college. And definitely the test that I took after college, it was a lot more difficult for me because I had a lot more responsibilities on my plate at the time.
I can add to that, Mary. I took the CPA. I essentially treated it like a fourth course during my graduate coursework in accounting. And then that summer, immediately after, before I started work, usually the big accounting firms start you sometime in September. And I graduated in May. So I had about 3 months there where I just studied for both parts of the CMA exam and was able to pass within that 3 months. That was completely dedicated, and I would say I kind of treated it like a daytime job, and I studied, you know, for about 35, 40 hours a week.
There you go. Yeah, we did have a couple questions about the study hours, so that gave everyone a pretty good idea about that. Is there another question?
I just wanted to point something out. I know there were a few questions for people specifically, but I encourage you to connect with them on LinkedIn. I don't know if we'll have enough time to get to all those, but maybe connect with them on LinkedIn and you can ask your question there too. But yeah, we got a lot of
a general question that I think everyone could touch on, and that is, what does the future look for an accountant in the post-world of COVID-19?
If you didn't hear that, it was, what does the role of an accountant look like in a post-COVID-19 world? So maybe about, are you back to your office yet? Or, any insight that you guys have with that? Take it away, whoever wants it.
I can start. So I've been pretty engaged with, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of consulting firms over the years, and I've been engaged with like a future of work panel across some of the bigger consulting and corporations. And I think the short answer is like, we just don't really know yet. I think what the pandemic has taught us all is how to be more flexible, more agile, connect more efficiently, virtually, et cetera. My team, like just speaking a little bit from like a Johnson & Johnson perspective, we were very fortunate because we had a global team prior to the pandemic. So we all sort of said, we're actually not working we are working differently, right? Because the whole world is virtual now, but we were very agile pre-pandemic. We were in, 6 global hubs, all different time zones, on Zoom, like that was our norm. So we shifted into that more permanently during the pandemic. But I think as we exit the other side of it, it's continuing to keep the best of what we learn and maybe get rid of some things that weren't as efficient before. We are back in the office starting this week, actually. So we're starting to go back and see colleagues. And but I don't know if others feel the same way, but the role I do every day is still exactly the same. We're still creating value for patients. We're still on our mission. We're still going after the best creating opportunities we can find out there in the market and internally. And I think we've just tried to learn how to be continue to be agile and flexible. So I wouldn't say that my role or anything is actually really changed in a logistical sense of the word. You know what I mean? We've all learned and evolved. It's been a really challenging couple of years, certainly leading in this stressful time. But the deliverables and our goals and objectives every year are actually pretty much the same.
Right. Anyone else?
I'll just add to what Lauren said. So for my current role and even for my prior roles, it's all been like global teams. So similar to Lauren, where we had to work with people with different time zones and be on video calls and all that. But I think one thing that has also happened in addition to that is the fact that with the pandemic, people have had different stress levels. Things have been very hard for people. So we have also taken the approach of kind of doing surveys also, just within the team. So kind of understand stress levels throughout the month and how can we make life better for everyone within the team. I remember when I joined McKinsey, for example, I pinged my manager at 5:30 p.m. and I felt really guilty about it. I'm like, oh, no, let's talk tomorrow, because all throughout the team, we are trying to have that mindset of having to cut off at 5:30, go home and have that personal time. So it's been a thing that they have really been very serious about, and it's really working. And me coming from the outside, I had to also adjust to that mindset of 5:30 is 5:30. We need to turn off your computer and go back to your life. So that's one thing that has kind of for me personally really changed. I feel like I've had a better work-life balance during COVID than before COVID.
Great. And then just for the sake of time, I'm going to give you all one final question. What would your advice be to your younger self as a student? And what would you tell students as they are looking in school at their future? So Dylan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I would just say focus on your passions and just focus on yourself, on becoming a more well-rounded person. And I know all of you are chasing after that accounting or finance degree, but don't make that your entire personality. Go out and experience new things. Definitely work on your communication skills. And because at work, it's all about communication. It's all about bridging that gap between accounting folks, finance folks, operations, just to be on the same page and go after that plan that the company has for what they want to achieve. And definitely don't chase after a job. Just the skills that you acquire, it's skills that you acquire, who you reach out to, who your network becomes, and who you leverage. That's going to be the roles you end up being in, and you're going to start attracting those roles that you eventually want to get.
Great. I'm just going to look at my boxes. I don't know if they're the same. Millie, you're next. So.
I would say don't be scared to explore something new. I wish I tried many different things way before. Now I'm kind of like learning that it's nice to just try something new because we learn. What's the worst thing that can happen? You learn. It's not going to be a disaster. So I think embracing change is one thing I would tell my younger self. And also just having a coach or a mentor. Before, many years back, I didn't think of like coaching and mentoring. It doesn't really have to be formal. Like your mentor can be anybody. So just having those maybe informal or formal coaching or mentoring sessions are very important, because through those, like, someone else sees you from the outside and can be able to give positive feedback to help you grow and advance within your career.
Great. And Mike, you're the next one in the box. So
yeah,
Mike.
that's all. Those are all really sound advice. Mine really is just to maintain an attitude of gratitude. I think there were times when I studied and I didn't understand the meaning or the value of certain things. So I think no matter where you're at, you got to think of it in life like there's someone who wants to be right where you are, trying to pursue the same opportunities you are. So just make sure to be grateful and have a good attitude and show up the best you can whenever you can.
Great. And last but not least, Lauren.
I mean, it's hard to top that, right?
Yeah, I know. I feel bad.
I almost like should go out with Michael, but I think just don't ever limit yourself to like what your job title is, you know, in your, as a student, as a professional. Like, just don't be afraid to get outside your lane and ask the questions, and just be curious, you know, be intellectually curious in everything that you do, and ask the question as to why. No one's ever going to like tell you that you shouldn't ask the question, and you're going to learn something, and it'll keep developing you, and that makes you a valuable partner and you know, frankly, like a more interesting person, right? So I think just don't be afraid to be curious and ask the questions as you go.
Oh, thank you so much to all of our panelists. That is great advice. I don't know if you're looking at the chat, but the students, that they're loving that you're giving the time, especially Millie and Lauren. It's after 5:30, so but this is great, and we've heard a lot of great information. And I think Tyler just is going to wrap it up really quick.
Yeah, and just thank you again for being here with us today. We're really excited to have you all, and it was a great session. There are a few things I wanted to go through very quickly, and it's the first thing is, if you're a junior, a senior, a graduate student at a four-year college, please take advantage of the CMA scholarship program. It's a great opportunity to earn a professional certification at zero cost. And remember, you just need your professor to nominate you, and basically you receive that automatically. So take advantage of that. And then also, maybe if you're a freshman or you're unsure if you want to go the CMA route, I still encourage you to become an IMA member. There's a lot of great benefits to being a student member. You saw some of the courses. I'll be talking about our student leadership conference on the next slide very quickly, but you can join for just $25 using the code CAMPUS22.
And something I'll just add to that quickly, everyone that's on this panel, they're IMA members. So they mentioned networking a lot. By becoming a student member, you become part of this organization. So in a way, you are connected to everyone that has some pretty fantastic jobs and responsibilities. So that's the other reason why you join an organization like IMA.
Yeah, and the great thing with the CMA exam and just being an IMA member is you can start right now as a student and start building your professional network and getting that relevant experience and gaining the knowledge and skill set from the many courses and different events like this that we have. So I do want to let you know about our upcoming Student Leadership Conference. It'll be held virtually on November 5th. So last year we held it virtually. It was a really great conference. And it's going to be on the same platform this year, so I have no doubt that it'll be great again. Hopefully the following year we'll be back in person in Pittsburgh, but last year we Mary's hometown, so we had a really great turnout. So we hope that you can join us for that. If you are a student or academic member, this is a free event that you can attend. If you're a non-member student, you can attend for $25, and that $25 will get you a year membership. So whether you go the Campus 22 code or you sign up for the Student Leadership Conference, it's $25 and you get a membership included with that. So I encourage you to join that. There's a virtual exhibit there. There's going to be a panel discussion, kind of like similar to this. There's going to be other presentations from CFOs. So it's a great event and we hope to see you there. Oh, and the last thing I want to share with you is to be on the lookout for our new commercials that we recently launched. And Mitra, if you can share those links in the chat for everyone to check out after this webinar. They're all funny and lighthearted and are about how in demand you are to employers with your CMA certification. So I think they're only 30 seconds long, so I encourage you to check those out after this. And then I wanted to share our contact information. So please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. And Mary or Mitra, if you could put our LinkedIn info in there as well, connect with us on LinkedIn. Feel free to ask us any questions there. We'd be happy to help you out there.
And I did see a couple of questions about the coupon code. It will expire at the end of this academic year. So, but please join that and do SLC. And if you do have questions regarding your school and what professor has nominated students from the scholarship, you can connect with Tyler and I, and we can look that up for you. But we appreciate everyone coming to this event and our panelists. This has been, every time we do this, I feel like I learned something new as well. So I'm sure that we keep hearing from the students, they're enjoying it too.
And I'm just gonna put the panelists information up there. Feel free to connect with them on LinkedIn. And once again, we just thank you for joining us, and we look forward to doing this in the spring.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.